So we are going to listen to a before and after on these drums. This is what the drums sounded like before without any processing. And this is what they sound like with the processing. And in this video, I will show you how I did it. Hey everybody, Fergie with Recording Crave. Thank you so much for tuning in today. I greatly appreciate it. Hey, if you are not a subscriber yet, I would love it if you would subscribe. Hey, in this video, this is continuing the Mixing Rock live stream video, although this is pre-recorded, but this is a continuation of the live stream video I did. Now, I've been done with this mix. I just haven't got around to recording a video for it. Now, I have made a few changes for the first mix because I realized that the mix I was doing was starting to gravitate to the original mix that I had done, that sound, and that's not what I wanted. So I made some changes, and I'm going to go over those changes with you in this video. But let's take a listen to the intro, the first verse, and the first chorus, and then see where we're at. Let's take a listen. I'm going to strum my guitar while it's playing.
My heart and tossed it up in the air. Shot it down, I didn't stand a prayer. Round one goes to you, my love. I'm impressed, and boy, you did your homework. You knew right where my target was. You have quite the little covert. Quick draw, you wave your guns in the air. So hard, I swear I got a fever.
Okay, so that is the first part of the song there, and let's go over what I had changed. And I'm going to break this video into different segments. I'm going to start with the drums. I will have a separate video for the bass and the guitars, another video for the vocals, another video for effects and automation, and then also probably what I did to the master bus. So let's jump into the drum portion. So here we are on the drums, and I color code all my tracks here, so all the drums are this tan color here. And let's solo those up, and I want to show you what I had done with that. Okay, so let's just take a quick listen to the drums isolated just for a little bit. Sounding pretty good. So the first thing I want to say is when I started making changes to the drum sound, which is one of the things I wanted to change in that live stream video, but I wasn't succeeding at, was the drum sound. So what I had done here was first I eliminated the drum sample and the kick drum sample and the snare drum sample. Those are no longer part of my mix. I went with the straight drum set as is, and I'm going to show you what I did to get that kick sound. Now, Obviously, these are real drums. They're not MIDI drums like you see on some of the videos. And this is played by musicians all the way through. This is not MIDI instruments at all, other than the keyboards and the effects, which are very few on this mix. So let me bypass all the processing on the kick drum here, and let's take a listen to this. Okay, so that is the original kick drum sound using a Beta 52 microphone, a Shure Beta 52. And the kick drum, I'm going to put a picture up here so you can see the kick drum was huge. It sounded massive in the room. However, when I put the Beta 52 into that small sound hole on the kick drum, all that air coming to that small sound hole, it was like it was collapsing the sound just a little bit and was not giving us the full dynamic of what that kick drum actually sounded like. And that was one of the reasons I initially added a sample. Even though I thought the kick drum sounded fairly decent, it sounded like it's definitely had a 70s sound to it, but a 70s maybe more of a pop sound rather than a rock sound. So let me show you what I did, and I'm going to go into the order that I put the plugins on. Now, some of these plugins that I'm using on the kick drum are not my typical go-tos. I tried my go-tos to get them to work, but I couldn't get the sound I was going after. So the first plugin that I put on was this Pultec EQ. I generally, this was an afterthought. Actually, I was watching a video with Eddie Kramer, and he was talking about doing a mix, and he was using his Pultecs. I'm like, man, I haven't used my Pultecs for a while. Let me try that on the kick. So here we are. Now, I'm going to just give you a quick run through on how the Pultec works if you don't know, and if you do know, you can fast forward this part. So the Pultec, how this works is these three knobs right here all work together. So you have the frequency here, you got 20, 30, 60, and 100, and I have it set at 60. Then you have your boost, what you're boosting it by. This is not dB, this is actually a little different gain structure than each number representing a dB, and I will throw that up underneath here. And if you're wondering how to use this or how things work on here, you can come over here, click this, and the manual will show up like so. And I will post this down here, but you can see how this low band boost works. 0 to 11 is actually an 18 dB boost. So do the math on that one, right? And then this attenuation is basically a low frequency cut. Then you have these three knobs here. You have this one, and this one, and these three work together. So again, the bandwidth is set here at 9, so it's very wide, and it says broad right here. So, and then the frequency I have at 10K, and then the boost I have at 7. Again, it's Pultec's funky numbers there. And then the attenuation and the attenuation selector work together. And this is basically cutting off the top end. So like you can cut it off at different frequencies. There's 3 different frequencies they give you. It's the 5, 10, and 20K. So I'm filtering out the top end starting at 20K here at 6. So just a little halfway. So probably close to 9 or 10 dB, I assume. And I'm not sure what the roll-off is on that. Then I brought the gain down, so I'm still clipping, but it's not clipping as much. So let's hear what this sounds like. I'm going to turn it on. So a little bit of a difference, a lot more low end, very warm sounding. So let's jump over to the next plugin that I put on. Another Pultec. And this one, I'm not using these first 2 knobs. These 2 work together, not using those. These 2 work together. I am using this. So I have a massive cut at 200 hertz. So when you raise this up, this is actually dipping the frequency. So it's a gain reduction. So, and then I'm using these 2 over here at 5K. I'm boosting at 4 there. And I'm going to play this, and then I'm going to leave it on bypass and then turn it on. So it cleans up some mud in that kick drum sound, and it sounds like it's giving us a little more snap on the top end of that. Okay, then I put the Pro Q3 on. I did some massive things with this plug-in here. So basically, let's start on the bottom here. So at 43, 45, I don't have my readers on, it's hard to see. So at 45 hertz, I did a cut off of everything there on down, and that is a 72 dB octave cut there. I did a small boost at almost 60 hertz, about 3.5 dB, and then I come down here and do a huge cut at 146 hertz at 18 dB cut. Now, I probably don't need that much. I could probably put some of that back in there and give the drum a little more meat, but you'll hear what it does in a second. And then I have a small boost over here at 9K at about 2.5 dB. And then I do a roll off on the top end, which I don't think is really doing anything. So let's just listen to this in bypass, and then I will engage it. So you can hear it really cleaned up some of the mud in that kick drum. And again, I could add some, but that's total preference. So there's no right or wrong answers. So let's go on to the next plugin. The next thing I put on here was the Shep 73. Now this is one of my go-to plugins. And so let's hear what this is doing. I'm going to turn it on. And you can hear what that's doing. I have a small boost about on 12K, 2 dB. I have a cut at 700 hertz, and that's about 2.5 dB, and a boost at 60 again at 1.5 dB. And then I do high pass filter at 50 hertz there. Then I come up here. This is what I put on next, and in this order. This is the Plugin Alliance Transient Designer Plus. This is a great plugin. I got the original version of this a long time ago after I saw somebody use it on one of their mixes. I was like, oh, I need that. So what this is going to do for me, this is going to clean up the low end with this sustain button, and then it's going to add some attack just to get it to poke through the mix a little bit more. So let's take a listen to what this is doing. I'm going to start it in bypass as usual. Really, really tightens up the bottom end by having the sustain down. And having this attack up, it's going to help it cut through the mix when it's playing, as we've already heard actually. So the next thing I put on was this VMR, this virtual channel here. This is one of my favorite plugins. I use this on a lot of my mixes. This is just adding some nice saturation on there, and I have the trimmer down almost 2 dB. So let's listen to this. It's in bypass. I'm going to switch it. Really subtle, but if you listen to the snap on the kick drum, what it does, it's saturating that snap a little bit, so it just softens a little bit, so it's not so clicky, sticky kind of sounding. Just if you listen to the top end of that kick drum, it just makes it a little smoother sounding on the top there. And then what I did was I put an L2 on the kick there to level out the performance but not crush it. This is basically just leveling off the entire performance there. Doesn't crush any of the dynamics when he plays a little softer on some build-up parts in the latter part of the song. It's just making the rest of the performance a little more even. And it gives it some more punch, which is what I like. And it made it a little louder, for sure. Okay, so that is the kick drum. I'm very happy with the way that kick drum turned out. No samples. The original kick drum, you heard it before and after. Huge difference. I love the sound of this kick. Let's move on to the snare drum. Okay, the snare drum here, this is the same from the first video. So there's nothing really changed on the snare drum itself, except for I got rid of the sample. So let's listen to the snare drum just for a refresher. That's with the plugins. That's the raw signal. So you can hear what this plugin's doing. Adds a little bit of high frequency here and some mid-range. But if I add too much, you can hear the cymbal bleed. And I want to get a little more crack out of the snare. Now, for some people, this might be fine just as it is. But for me, I want a little more crack out of the snare. So what I'm going to do here, and let's put the compressor on here. So instead of cranking up the high end and bringing in more cymbal bleed, what I did was I duplicated the channel and added a gate on here. So this gate will eliminate all of the cymbals. I could put the gate on here, but he plays some ghost notes on the bridge portion, and if I put the gate on there, I'll lose it. So basically I duplicated the track, put a gate on that track, so I can keep my ghost notes when he plays them, but I could still tweak the sound of the snare. So let's take a listen to that. So the raw snare sound, there's the gate. You can see what the settings are on that. I do have this automated, so I think there's a part right before the guitar solo. It does this drum roll in, and I want to make sure we get all the notes in there, so I bypass that during that part. And then I have this plug-in. You can see what I've done here. I'm going to add 12K, going to add 3.2, and I'm going to add 110 hertz, and here's what that's doing. Sounding a lot more snappier, which is what I want. And then I add the little radiator here. Now this is going to give me a little more sizzle yet on the snare drum. Very simple plug-in. I've demoed this on another video. If you've watched one of my videos on saturation, this is on that video, I believe. So I have the heat right about 2 o'clock, and the mix is about the same. Bias is up, and the noise is off, because that will add a lot of hiss. And then just putting a little bit of compression on there, just using the snare preset on here. Just pulls it forward. Let's bring in the other snare. There's without the reverb. So changes it quite a bit, helps it crack, helps that snare crack there. So here's with the kick and the snares. Love it. Great. That's exactly what I wanted on this. No samples. I know I said that once already, but I was so pleased with the way the kick turned out and not using samples. So it just took a little extra work, but it was well worth it. So the next thing I had done on the drums was this room mic here. So this room mic, the last video, I had a compressor, the CLA 76 on here, and it wasn't doing what I needed it to do. So I put the Sound Toys decapitator on here, and let's hear what this is doing. We'll use it. I don't think I have the trim doing anything, so I can take that off of there. So let's listen to this here in bypass. Just the mic in the center of the room. Now I'm going to engage it here. I'm going to play it again and then I'll engage it. And very lo-fi sounding. I'm very happy with the way that turned out as well. You can see where I have the drive. It's almost at 7.5. It's hard to see these little markers. Low cut is at about 1 o'clock. Tone is at 1 o'clock. And the high cut is at 1 o'clock. So all these three about the same. The output is almost at 2 o'clock. The mix is all the way wet. I do have it set to auto. And then the style I have set to T. And let's listen to it in the context of the drums so we can hear what it's doing and what it's changing. I'm going to mute it here in a second. If you hear the cymbals, you can really hear what it's doing. It makes them a little trashier sounding, that lo-fi, but it's not overwhelming. And that's just adding a little salt on the mix there. And if we put too much salt, it'll be too salty. So we don't want to taste the salt. We just want to enjoy the flavor, right? So listen to the hat. Okay, so that's the room mic. Let's move on to what I had done next, and that is the drum parallel bus here. This gives the drums a lot of extra spice that they don't have by themselves. I route all my drums to a drum bus right here. Here on the send, I add a parallel send to this drum parallel channel. What I have on this channel is an arouser, which is similar to a distressor, and then a Sheps 73. Of course, when you add a parallel channel and you run signal through it, when you turn up the fader, you're going to get more volume. So there is more volume, unquestionable. But what we're doing with it is we are compressing it with this arouser, and let's bypass it for now. I'm going to bypass the Sheps 73 as well. Let's take a listen to it, what it sounds like without the arouser on. And I'm going to move to a portion of the song where it's more noticeable yet. So let's take a listen to this. The cymbals come alive a lot more. I'm going to bypass it again. So when this arouser kicks in, it makes the cymbals and the drum track a lot more exciting. And basically, you can see what I have it set at here, 20 to 1, these settings here. And then you can see the harmonic distortion that's happening. Now, the next thing I have on here is the Sheps 73, and this will accentuate the cymbals even more and the low end. So you can see what I have here is a 12K boost, about 1.4 dB. At 4.8K, I have 2.5 dB. And then at 60 hertz, I have about a 1 dB boost. And then I have a high-pass filter on there as well at 50 hertz. So let's take a listen to this in bypass, and then I will turn it on. I'm going to bypass. Pretty subtle, but it just adds a little bit more flavor to the mix there. And I did one other thing that I did not do. I changed the reverb out on my snare to this Sonsig from Relab. I put this reverb on the snare. Great little reverb. You can hear what that's doing. And I think the default comes set a little bit different than that, and I just set it to my taste or whatever you want to do. This is simple to use, and it sounds exceptionally well, and it works pretty quick. You know, the other one, I'm still using this one on the toms. This guy here, this is an underrated reverb and very affordable, but this is it takes a little bit more work because there's a lot more options that you have. Anyway, that is what I had done to the drums, and that is all I have for this video. I appreciate you tuning in today. Thank you so much for watching. And again, if you haven't subscribed, I would love it if you would. And we will see you in the next video, which will be the bass and the guitar video for this series. See you in the next video.